What's up guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Saman Habibi, your real estate agent for the Durham region and Oshawa. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how investors make profit with real estate and what type of real estate are people buying. If you have any questions about any of the content that you're hearing today, feel free to book a call with me through my calendar link below. And feel free to follow me on my social media, on my Instagram and on my Twitter right over here. All right guys, so as mentioned, today we're going to be talking about how investors make profit with real estate. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 4 different types of properties over here. If you look at the slideshow, we're going to look at single family homes, duplex homes, so these are homes with 2 units, multifamily properties, so these would be the 2 3-story apartment buildings with 5 units or more, and pre-construction properties. And the criteria that we're going to look at is mortgage paydown. So with all these investment options, you're going to have a tenant, and we want to know if the tenant is paying down the mortgage or not. We're going to look at cash flow, so we're going to look at rental income minus rental expense to see if there's any money left over at the end of the month or if you're out of pocket. We're going to talk about forced depreciation. So this is essentially looking at the property itself and determining if there's anything you can do strategically to increase the value of the property. And then we're going to consider natural appreciation. We're also going to look at some other factors such as ease of entry. So how easy is it for the average investor to walk into this type of investment property? What is the tenant profile? What's the liquidity factor? So how fast can you get in and how fast can you sell this property? And future development. Does the asset have potential for future development? In my opinion, you need to essentially look at the profit factors and non-profit factors to determine what is the best strategy for you and your scenario. So let's jump right into it. So with single family homes, as we know in the GTA, prices have been appreciating fairly high. And as a result of that, the one factor that doesn't necessarily work out is the cash flow. So higher prices mean a higher mortgage, but just because you have an expensive home doesn't mean that your rental income is going to be at the very peak in order for it to generate positive cash flow. So typically, if we're looking at a single family home, let's say in the Durham region, this single family home, Durham region on average has been around $900,000 to $1 million. But for a single family home, your rental income is around $3,000 to $3,500. So at the end of the month, there isn't much cash flow left over, and you're typically not cash flow positive on a single family home. But with that said, although you're collecting rental income, you're able to pay down your mortgage, and in fact, that pay down is happening is as a result of you collecting rent. So your tenants will be paying down the mortgage on your property, and that is a bonus. In terms of forced appreciation, so forced appreciation means, can you do something to the property to increase the value of it? And in this scenario, it really depends on, the type of lot you have and the type of property you have. But typically I would say, if you're in a subdivision where your lot is large enough, you may have the ability to, either put in a garden suite or have some sort of additional structure on it that would help you create income. But I would say it's not always yes, but you can. And then in terms of natural appreciation, we know, any type of home in the GTA is going to appreciate over time. So, that is also a check when we talk about single family homes. If we look at duplexes, so this would be a property with 2 units. Typically, mortgage paydown and cash flow is for sure a yes. And the reason for that is with 2 units, you have 2 tenants, and the rental income typically exceeds the rental income from a single family home. You have the ability to have forced appreciation. So with duplexes, you're typically purchasing a bungalow and then you're doing some sort of strategic renovation to the basement in order to legalize it and in order for you to demand higher rents. And as a result, natural appreciation is also there as well. So next, we have the multifamily properties. These are the 2-3-story apartment buildings with 5 units or more. Do you get mortgage pay down? Yes, because again, as we said, you have a tenant paying down your mortgage. The cash flow on these properties is initially no, because these are such high demand properties that when you purchase at a high price and at a very low cap rate. And as a result, initially your cash flow is negative, but as you stabilize these buildings, so as you have tenant turnover and as you perform renovations on the property and increase the rent, that cash flow will become positive. Forced appreciation, yes. So with these properties, it's important to note that these properties are valued on an income approach and not a comparable approach. So what that means is that as you have tenant turnover, as mentioned, and as you improve the financials of the building, so increase your revenue and reduce your expense, you're going to force appreciate the value of the property because you have an increased net operating income. Natural appreciation, typically with these properties, I would say yes, you do have appreciation because the demand just keeps growing and investors want to get into the bigger apartment buildings. Now with pre-construction, this is a very sensitive topic when it comes to investment strategies because it's historically worked really well for people. But if we look at the fundamentals of it, we can't get away from the fact that cash flow is often negative on these properties, and if anything, you're out of pocket. And that's mainly because of expensive prices in the GTA, and also the fact that your cash flow is destroyed by the monthly maintenance fee associated with the property. And in terms of forced appreciation, there really isn't forced appreciation because you don't own the land, you're in the air, and there's really not much of a future development play with condos, right? It is what it is. You get a unit and you rent it out. Is there natural appreciation? Yes, and historically people have done really well with the natural appreciation when it comes to pre-construction properties. Now, if we go into the other factors such as ease of entry, tenant profile, liquidity, and future development, what do we have? Essentially, if we look at single family homes, they're easy to purchase. The tenant profile is great because you typically have a family of 2 adults and maybe 2 kids or 2 older kids in the property, and it works out fairly well. Typically, these are low maintenance properties or tenants, assuming that you've done your due diligence. And then, in terms of liquidity, can you sell this? Yes, single family homes are in high demand, so you are able to sell them at a premium. Are there future development opportunities? I would say not really, because, you are essentially caught in this one restricted area, lot size with neighbors around you. So anything that you want to do to this property would require a permit and then an invitation to town hall where neighbors can come in and essentially either approve or reject your plans. If we look at duplex properties, they're fairly easy to purchase because it's a typical loan. It's a typical residential loan. If there's already tenants in there, the income from the tenants paying you rent allow you to qualify for the mortgage. Let's jump to the next topic, tenant profile. It really depends. Sometimes you're inheriting good or bad tenants. It's really hard to know that unless you interact with them. But nevertheless, even if you are doing the renovation and you're going to bring in your own tenants, you can essentially be very picky if you wanted to and extend your search for a longer period of time until you find the tenants that meet your criteria. Liquidity, yes, you are able to sell these fairly quick as the demand for them is fairly high. Future development, yes, I would say it really depends on the lot size. So, right now the biggest buzz in the GTA or in Ontario is garden suites. And typically with these duplexes are typically on a property that's at minimum 40 feet wide and minimum 100 feet deep, with neighbors being fairly spaced out. So, do you have the ability to put in a garden suite? If legislation passes in the Durham and in some towns in Durham, you will be able to. So we know that Clarington has passed that. You can do that. We know Barrie has passed it. We know Toronto has passed it. So it does give you that future development option, which is a bonus in my opinion. For anyone who doesn't know, a garden suite or an additional dwelling unit would be a structure that you put in your backyard where your garden would have been. And it's essentially the ability to build a dwelling where you can have a bedroom, a kitchen, a living space, a bathroom, and essentially be able to have another house on your property where you can rent out and bring in more rental income. In terms of multifamily properties, ease of entry, I would say that's a no, because typically these buildings are expensive to purchase. You have to deal with a commercial mortgage, which come with higher interest rates, and just the difficulty of it. Perhaps you have to do some environmental work on the property to make sure that the land is not contaminated. So ease of entry is definitely not there. It's not as easy as buying a single family home. It does have additional complexity attached to it. Tenant profile, typically when you're buying these apartment buildings, you're inheriting the tenant. And these buildings were built in the 70s and 80s, and a lot of the tenants have been there for a long time. So, you typically have older people or you have low income people, because the rents in these apartment buildings is typically cheaper than the rents in duplexes. Liquidity, do you have the liquidity factor? I would say yes, because of the high demand. When these properties come up for sale, people are always looking for them and always bidding on them. Pricing might be aggressive, but we're finding that in recent months, as investors try and scale their portfolio, they're going directly to the multifamily properties. And future development, I think it always comes down to the lot size, but if your lot is big enough, then I would say there's perhaps some opportunities to increase density and to increase the number of units. And lastly, pre-construction. If we look at pre-construction, ease of entry, yes, because when you purchase these properties, you're typically purchasing it based off of a floor plan that you see. Tenant profile, it's typically a single family, property. So whether you're downtown or along the core, you're either going to have a young professional or a small family living in it. Are you able to sell these fairly quick? I would say yes. A lot of people either assign the contracts or close on it for a year, have it occupied for a year or two, let it appreciate, and then sell once it's appreciated. And then future development, as we spoke, there really isn't a lot of future development play with condominiums. Now, if we just do an overall summary, we can see the check marks and the red boxes here. Essentially, if we look at my favorites and my least favorite, my favorite would be the duplex properties, because you really can't go wrong. The cash flow is there, the forced appreciation factor is there, the future development opportunities there. It seems to be a very, entry-level investment property to get into, and one that is fairly easy to stable, because as long as your cash flow and your numbers work out, your debt to service ratio is fairly healthy. And this is important because as you try and grow your portfolio, the bank's looking at your debt to service ratio to ensure that the income from your properties can cover the debt. And then my least favorite would be the pre-construction properties, because this is meant to be an investment, and it's supposed to be of one that generates cash flow and has the ability for you to grow your wealth. And people have been fairly successful with these, but my philosophy is that I need positive cash flow and I don't want to be out of pocket every month. So as a result, I ran numbers on hundreds of pre-construction projects, and I would say nearly all of them do not cash flow and you need to be out of pocket. And in my opinion, it's more of a speculation play, which can work. It just depends on what your investment criteria is. And I personally don't like the fact that it's that you don't have any future development opportunities, which I deem to be important. And another reason why I don't like pre-construction, as mentioned, it's a pure speculation play, and you're putting a lot of money down, and you don't have a lot of certainty with the closing date. So a lot of these projects right now are fairly unstable in the sense that builders will announce a launch, they will go ahead and sell some floor plans, and then next thing you know, they don't have approvals from the city, and as a result, a lot of these projects get canceled. And then, from a consumer or a buyer's perspective, you've tied in money with a developer for 2-3 years, and then you're getting the news that the building is no longer going to be built. So a lot of the control is not in your hands or in your control. It's with the developer, and you don't really know, how much effort the developer is putting into this project. I can say that right now, with prices increasing and the cost to build increasing, developers are doing everything they can to delay the launch or push it back. So essentially commodities and lumber prices come down so their profitability margins can increase. So as a result, if I was to pick one of these, I would go with the duplex strategy, simply because, you win in a lot of the areas that we've talked about. All right, guys, a bit of a longer video, but again, thank you very much for watching. And if you've stayed this far till the end, again, if you have any questions about this topic, or if you want to talk about your personal situation, feel free to book a call with me through my calendar link below, and we can jump on a call and talk about your specific questions related to your specific scenario. What's up? Buddy just crushed the Wendy's and came in. What's up?
Just jumping right in.
We're just doing a video. Hey! Just doing the weekly video.
The what?
The weekly video.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good. You?
Sorry for interrupting.
That's okay, we were just trying to do one take.
I heard it needed improvements.
Yeah.
Remember where you were?
Yeah.